Now it's time to turn our attentions to ES6 classes, which essentially allow us to do the exact same thing by using a nicer and more modern syntax. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the classes and JavaScript do not work like traditional classes and other languages like Java or C++. So instead, classes and JavaScript are just synthetic sugar over what we learned in the last few videos. So they still implement prototype inheritance behind the scenes, but with a syntax that makes more sense to people coming from other programming languages. And so that was basically the goal of adding classes to JavaScript. But anyway, let's now implement person using a class. So we can write class and then the name of the class, and let's call it %cs. CS stands for class, and then curly braces like this. And so this is actually a class declaration, but just like in functions, we also have a class expression, and so that will work like this. So class expression and a class declaration, and so then you can pick out which one you like the most. So it will be %cl and then class, and then just like a function but without the arguments. And that is because classes are just a special type of functions. So even though we use a class keyword here, behind the scenes, classes are still functions, and therefore we have a class expression and a class declaration. Now for some reasons, I prefer the class declaration, and so I'm gonna use that right here. And so this is how we write a sample class. And then inside the class, the first thing that we need to do is to add a constructor method like this. And this constructor actually works in a pretty similar way as a constructor function, so as we studied previously, but this one is actually a method of this class. In fact, it needs to be called constructor. So that is the rule. But just like in constructor functions, we pass in the arguments basically for the properties that we want the object to have. So that's again first name and then birth year. And now the add or create a new object actually also works in the exact same way as before. So using new operator, and so therefore whenever we create new object, so like a new instance using new operator, this constructor will be automatically called. So let's actually try that right away. And then in this time, let's create Jessica here. So new %cl. So as you see, everything here looks exactly the same as before. So it looks just like a regular function calling again. We also use a new keyword here, and so therefore just like before, that this keyword inside of the constructor will be set to the newly created empty object. And so just like before, we set the property of the object like this. So this dot first name is equal to first name that we receive, and the same for the birth year. So basically, when we create new instance here, then it is this constructor that is gonna be called and then return a new object, and then that will be stored into this Jessica. So let's just log this to the console. And so in fact, it looks just like before. And so here we basically have the properties that will be stored in the new object that we want to create. And so now it's time for methods. And methods we simply write like this. So we can simply add them here. All we have to do is to write their name. So just like a regular function in here. So this is very nice and convenient. And so let's simply do the same as before. 2013 minus this dot by year. Now what's important to understand here is that all of these methods that we write in the class, so outside the constructor, will be on the prototype of objects and not on the objects themselves. So this is really just like before, prototype inheritance. In fact, we're going to even to confirm that here. So as we inspect this Jessica object, when we look into its prototype, then we will once again see the call a function here. And so therefore, we're going to even to do this. And actually, we don't even need to log it to the console because call each method already does that on its own. So indeed, we get an H here. And so one more time, let me prove to you that Jessica dot underscore underscore proto underscore underscore equal to %cl dot prototype. And it is true. And so as you see, %cl here just like any other function constructor, but the only difference that this looks a little bit nicer. So with this syntax, we don't have to manually mix with the prototype property. All we have to do is to write the methods here. So inside the class, but outside the constructor, and then they will automatically be added to the prototype property of the class basically. So let me actually write that here. And we can take this demonstration even further by also adding a method manually to the prototype. So that's gonna work. So let's create a greet method here like this. So let's say, hey, this is the first name, and then we can call this on the Jessica, of course, Jessica.greet. And so as you see, that works as well. And so this is a proof one more time that the class really just hides the true nature of prototype inheritance and JavaScript. So of course we could now do the same like this. And notice how there's a no comma between the methods. So we could do this, take out this, and it will work exactly the same way. You see? So this is great for people who are coming from another languages and have experience with the object-oriented programming, because it's gonna be a bit easier for these developers to start writing an object-oriented code in JavaScript. So now to finish, I just need to say a couple more things about classes that are important to keep in mind. So first, classes are not wasted, and so even if they are class declaration, so remember function declaration is hoisted, so which means we can use them before they are declared in the code. But with the classes, that does not work. Second, just like a function, classes are also first-class citizens, and so what that means is that we can pass them into the function and also return them from functions. And as I mentioned before, that is because classes are really just a special kind of function behind the scene. And third, the body of a class is always executed in stream mode, and so even if we did not activate it for our entire script, all the code that is in the class will be executed in stream mode. So this point keep in mind if you want to work with the classes. So now at the end of this video, you might ask if you should use constructor functions like we have been doing, or if instead it's better to use classes. And the first remark I want to do here is that constructor functions are not like old or deprecated syntax, so it 100% fine to keep using them. So one more time, this is a more question of personal preferences. Now if you ask if you should use classes without understanding prototype inheritance, well then the answer is definitely no. Now some people actually say that classes are really bad and general, and that no one should ever be using them simply because they hide the true nature of JavaScript.